Rain pattered against the sidewalk as 18-year-old Maya set up her small folding table under the awning of a closed coffee shop. Her fingers trembled slightly, partly from the cold, partly from exhaustion. The chemotherapy from 2 days ago still lingered in her system, making her movements slower than usual. But she couldn't afford to stay home today. Not when the bills were piling up and her mother was working double shifts just to keep their apartment. Maya carefully arranged her watercolor paintings on the table. Small landscapes, delicate flowers, and abstract patterns that she created during long hours in hospital waiting rooms. Art was her escape, her way of finding beauty, even as cancer tried to steal her future. She'd been selling her pieces for 3 months now, setting aside every dollar for the treatment her insurance wouldn't cover. "Good morning, sweetheart," Mrs. Chen called from the bakery next door. "I brought you some tea. It's going to be a cold one today." Maya smiled gratefully. "Thank you. You really didn't have to." "Nonsense. Artists need warm hands." Mrs. Chen glanced at the new paintings. "These are even better than last week's. You're getting stronger." The irony wasn't lost on Maya. Her body might be failing her, but her art was growing more powerful, as if everything she couldn't express about her fear and hope was flowing through her brushes instead. The morning passed slowly. A few regulars stopped by: the businessman who bought a small piece every Tuesday, the college student who asked about Maya's techniques, the elderly couple who always insisted on paying more than her asking price. Each sale brought her closer to next month's treatment, but the medical bills were a mountain she was climbing with a teaspoon. By midday, dark clouds had gathered, threatening heavier rain. Maya pulled her beanie lower, covering what remained of her hair. She'd stopped being self-conscious about it weeks ago. There were bigger battles to fight than vanity. "How much for this one?" a gruff voice asked. Maya looked up from her sketchbook to see a man pointing at one of her forest scenes, a path winding through tall pines, morning light filtering through branches. Something about him seemed familiar, but with the baseball cap pulled low and the collar of his jacket turned up against the cold, she couldn't place him. "That one's $40, she replied. "It's one of my favorites." The man nodded, studying the painting with genuine interest. "The light is remarkable. You've captured something most photographers miss." There was something about his voice, that distinctive timbre that triggered a memory. Maya tilted her head slightly, trying to see his face better without being obvious. "Do you paint from real places?" he asked, picking up another piece, a desert landscape with impossibly vast skies. "Some. Others come from dreams or places I wish I could visit." Maya gestured to the forest scene. "That one's from a camping trip before I got sick. Olympic National Park." She hadn't meant to mention her illness. It usually made people uncomfortable, created an awkward pity she didn't want, but something about this stranger made her speak honestly. "Beautiful country up there," he said, nodding. "I've done some hiking in those parts." A gust of wind blew through, rattling her display. Maya lunged to catch a painting that nearly went airborne, but the motion sent pain shooting through her side. She couldn't suppress a wince. The man noticed. He steadied the table with a weathered hand. "You all right?" "Fine," she said automatically. "Just a little sore from treatment." Their eyes met fully for the first time, and Maya's breath caught in her throat. Standing at her humble sidewalk display was Harrison Ford, the Han Solo of her childhood movies, the Indiana Jones her father had introduced her to before he left. Maya blinked, certain she was hallucinating. Maybe it was a side effect of her medication. But no, it was definitely him, watching her with those familiar eyes, now filled with quiet concern. "I'm sorry to hear that," he said simply, not acknowledging who he was or showing any awareness of her recognition. It was as if they were just two normal people having a conversation on a rainy Seattle morning. Maya composed herself quickly. The last thing she wanted was to make him uncomfortable or draw attention. Celebrities were people too, and he clearly wasn't looking to be recognized today. "Thank you. It's just part of the process." She straightened her paintings, trying to act normal while her heart raced. "Are you interested in the forest piece?" He nodded, still examining it. "There's something honest about it. No shortcuts." He looked at her again. "How long have you been painting?" "Since I was little, but seriously for about 3 years." Maya tucked a strand of hair back into her beanie. It helps with everything else. A young couple walked by, the woman doing a double take at Harrison Ford, before her boyfriend pulled her along. Maya pretended not to notice. "I'll take this one," he said, indicating the forest scene. "And that one too." He pointed to a larger piece, her most expensive work, a dramatic sunset over mountains that had taken her weeks to complete. That's 100 for the larger one," Maya said, hardly believing someone was finally buying it. "So 140 total." Harrison Ford reached for his wallet, but paused, looking at the small sign at the corner of her table. It was handwritten, slightly smudged from the damp air. "Art for treatment. Funding my fight against leukemia." Something shifted in his expression, not pity, but a deeper understanding. He glanced at the small box of medication visible in her open backpack, then at her pale hands with bruises from IV needles. "How's business been?" he asked quietly. Maya smiled ruefully. "Slow and steady. Every bit helps." He nodded, then pulled out several bills. "I think these pieces are worth more than you're asking." Before Maya could respond, he placed $500 bills on the table. "This seems more appropriate for the quality." Maya stared at the money, stunned. "Sir, I can't. That's way too much." "I've been collecting art for longer than you've been alive," he said with that familiar half-smile. "Trust me, I know value when I see it." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of her phone alarm. Time for medication. Maya silenced it quickly, embarrassed. "Don't skip that on my account," Harrison said, gesturing toward her backpack. As Maya reached for her water bottle and pills, he carefully picked up the two paintings. "These are special," he said. "You've got a real gift. Don't let anything take that from you, not even this illness." Maya swallowed her medication, fighting back unexpected tears. Not from the money, though that would cover next week's treatment, but from being seen. Really seen, not as a sick girl selling art for sympathy, but as an artist whose work had value. "Thank you," she managed to say. "That means a lot." He nodded again, then hesitated. "I know some people in the art world. Would you mind if I took a photo of your display? Might be able to make a call or two." Maya nodded, speechless. Harrison Ford, the Harrison Ford, pulled out his phone and snapped several pictures of her remaining paintings and the small business card she'd made at the library. "Keep fighting," he said simply, "and keep painting. The world needs to see what you see." With that, he turned up his collar against the rain and walked away, carrying her artwork carefully to protect it from the weather. Maya sat frozen, watching him disappear around the corner, the $500 bills still on her table. It wasn't until Mrs. Chen came rushing out of her bakery that Maya realized other people had noticed. "Was that who I think it was?" the woman asked breathlessly. Maya nodded, still in shock. "What did he say? Did he buy something?" "He said..." Maya picked up the money with trembling hands. "He said I have a gift." The first drop of heavy rain hit the sidewalk, but Maya hardly noticed. For the first time in months, she felt something beyond determination, beyond the grim resolve that had been carrying her through treatments and bad news. She felt hope, fragile and unexpected, like finding a wildflower growing through concrete. What she didn't know was that Harrison Ford was already making a phone call, and her life was about to change in ways she couldn't imagine. As the afternoon wore on, word spread quickly through the neighborhood. The bakery owner had posted about the encounter on social media, and curious onlookers began drifting by Maya's little art stand. Some came hoping for a glimpse of Harrison Ford, but most stayed to look at her paintings with newfound interest. By 4 o'clock, she had sold 3 more pieces, more than she typically sold in a week. "I've always loved your work," said Mr. Grayson, the retired teacher who lived in her building. "But now I'm wondering if I should invest before you become famous." He winked as he carefully wrapped the small landscape he'd purchased. Maya laughed softly. "I think you're getting a bit ahead of things." But as she packed up her remaining artwork that evening, she couldn't help wondering if something truly was changing. The $500 was safely tucked in her mother's old lockbox, along with another $200 from the day's sales. Enough for next week's treatment, and maybe even some better quality canvases. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Running late. Start dinner without me? Love you. Maya sighed. Another 16-hour shift. Her mother had been working herself to exhaustion since the diagnosis, taking any overtime offered at the hospital where she worked as a nurse's aide. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Her mother spent her days caring for others while struggling to afford care for her own daughter. The rain had stopped by the time Maya reached their apartment. She climbed the 4 flights slowly, pausing to catch her breath on each landing. The chemotherapy sapped her energy, making even simple tasks challenging. But today, fueled by her encounter with Harrison Ford, she felt a spark of something different. After putting her paintings away, Maya made a simple pasta dinner, setting aside a portion for her mother to reheat later. She was just finishing her meal when her phone rang with an unknown number. Hello? She answered cautiously. Is this Maya Reyes? Asked a woman's crisp, professional voice. Yes, this is she. My name is Diana Lawson from the Westbrook Gallery. I understand you're an artist selling work to fund medical treatment. Maya nearly dropped her phone. The Westbrook Gallery was one of Seattle's most prestigious art spaces. Yes, that's right, she stammered. How did you hear about me? Harrison Ford sent me some photos of your work this afternoon. He's quite impressed, and Harrison doesn't impress easily. Maya sank into a chair, her legs suddenly weak. He actually called you? He did, and I'd like to see your portfolio as soon as possible. We have an emerging artists showcase planned for next month, and I think your work might be a good fit. The conversation that followed was a blur of details. What to bring, when to come in, questions about her technique and training. By the time Maya hung up, her hands were shaking with excitement and disbelief. She tried calling her mother, but got voicemail. Too wound up to sit still, Maya pulled out a fresh canvas and began painting with an urgency she hadn't felt in months. Colors flowed from her brush, bold strokes of hope mixed with the delicate shadows of fear she still carried. She painted until midnight, until her arms ached and her eyes grew heavy, creating what she already knew was her best work yet. When she finally fell asleep, her dreams were filled with gallery openings and treatments that worked, and Harrison Ford's voice telling her she had a gift. Morning brought reality crashing back in the form of nausea and bone-deep fatigue, the familiar aftermath of chemotherapy catching up with her. Maya's mother found her hunched over the toilet, pale and trembling. "Oh, sweetie," she murmured, placing a cool washcloth on Maya's neck. "Bad morning?" Maya nodded weakly. "But you won't believe what happened yesterday." As her mother helped her back to bed, Maya recounted the encounter with Harrison Ford and the call from the gallery. With each detail, her mother's exhausted face brightened. "See? I've always told you your art would take you places," she said, stroking Maya's cheek. "And Harrison Ford has good taste." Maya smiled despite her discomfort. "I need to prepare a portfolio for the meeting next week. Can you help me choose which pieces to bring?" "Of course, but first, rest." Her mother kissed her forehead. "I'm taking today off. No arguments." The next few days passed in a flurry of preparation. On good days, Maya painted new pieces, pushing herself to capture the complicated emotions of her journey. On bad days, when the treatment left her too weak to hold a brush, her mother helped her sort through existing work, choosing the strongest pieces for the gallery meeting. News of Maya's encounter with Harrison Ford had spread beyond their neighborhood. A local arts blog picked up the story, featuring photos of her sidewalk display and her battle with leukemia. Orders for paintings started coming in through her hastily created website, more than she could possibly fulfill in her condition. "We'll need to set expectations," her mother cautioned. "Your health comes first." Maya nodded, though the artist in her wanted to stay up all night painting, to seize this unexpected opportunity. "I just don't want to let anyone down." "The only person you need to worry about is yourself," her mother insisted. "Everything else will follow." The morning of the gallery meeting arrived with a fresh challenge. Maya's white blood cell count was dangerously low, and her doctor advised against going out in public. "But this is my chance," Maya argued during her phone consultation. "I can wear a mask, take precautions." "Your immune system can't fight off infections right now," Dr. Patterson explained gently. "You're putting yourself at serious risk." Tears of frustration welled in Maya's eyes as she hung up. All this preparation, all this hope, derailed by the very illness she was fighting. Her mother found her crying over her carefully arranged portfolio. "The doctor says I can't go," Maya explained between sobs. "After everything, I'm going to miss my shot." Her mother sat beside her, quiet for a long moment. "What if the gallery comes to you?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, we turn this apartment into a gallery for the day." Her mother gestured around their small living space. "We hang your best work, make it professional. If this Diana person is serious about your art, she'll understand the circumstances." Maya wiped her eyes. "You think she would come here?" "There's only one way to find out." The call to the gallery was terrifying, but Diana Lawson's response surprised Maya. "Actually, seeing your work in your creative space would be enlightening," she said. "I'll come by this afternoon if that works for you." What followed was a whirlwind of activity. Maya's mother transformed their modest apartment, hanging paintings strategically, adjusting lighting, even borrowing a sleek coffee maker from a neighbor to serve proper espresso. "Now you rest," she instructed Maya an hour before the appointment. "Save your energy for the meeting." Maya lay on her bed, heart racing with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. This was happening. A real gallery owner was coming to see her work, because Harrison Ford had walked by her table in the rain and seen something worth sharing. The doorbell rang precisely at 3. Maya adjusted her headscarf and took a deep breath, steadying herself. Whatever happened next, this moment was already a victory. She was being taken seriously as an artist, not just a sick girl with a hobby. As her mother welcomed Diana Lawson into their apartment, Maya stood to greet her, shoulders back, chin high. Today, she wasn't a patient. She was a painter with a story to tell and the courage to tell it. What she didn't know was that Diana Lawson had already decided to feature her work before even arriving, and that Harrison Ford was privately arranging something that would change everything. Diana Lawson moved through the small apartment with practiced eyes, taking in each painting with careful consideration. She was younger than Maya had expected, maybe mid-30s, with sharp features and a sleek black bob. She didn't speak much at first, just nodded occasionally and made notes on her tablet. "Your use of light is extraordinary," she finally said, stopping before the large canvas Maya had painted the night after meeting Harrison Ford. "There's raw emotion here, but disciplined technique, that's rare." Maya's mother hovered nearby, refilling Diana's espresso cup whenever it emptied, clearly nervous but trying to appear professional. Maya herself sat on their old armchair, conserving her strength while answering Diana's increasingly specific questions about her process, influences, and training. "I'm largely self-taught," Maya admitted. "I took community art classes before I got sick, but mostly I've learned from books and online tutorials." Diana raised an eyebrow. "That makes this even more impressive." She gestured toward a series of small watercolors depicting hospital scenes, waiting rooms, IV stands, the view from Maya's treatment chair. "These are particularly compelling. The emotion is contained but palpable." After nearly an hour of examination, Diana sat across from Maya at their small dining table. "I'll be direct," she said, closing her tablet. "We have an emerging artists showcase opening in 3 weeks. I want to feature your work, specifically your treatment series and some of your landscapes. We would need at least 15 pieces." Maya's heart leapt, but anxiety quickly followed. 3 weeks? I'm not sure I can create enough new work by then. With my treatment schedule, we'll use what you have. These pieces are ready. Diana gestured around the room. "Harrison was right about you. There's something authentic here that people connect with." Maya glanced at her mother, who was beaming despite trying to maintain a professional demeanor. "What would this involve exactly?" "We handle everything: transportation, framing, installation. Your pieces would be on display for a month, available for purchase. The gallery takes a standard 40% commission." Diana paused. "I should mention that given your circumstances, Mr. Ford has arranged to cover all associated costs for your participation." Maya blinked in surprise. "He has?" "He believes in supporting emerging talent." Diana's expression softened slightly. And your story is compelling, Maya. People will connect with your journey through your art. I don't want pity purchases, Maya said firmly. If my work sells, I want it to be because people see value in it, not because they feel sorry for me. Diana smiled, the first real smile since she'd arrived. That's precisely why Harrison recommended you, and I agree completely. Your work stands on its own merits. Your story may draw people in, but the art itself is what will move them. By the time Diana left, clutching a small painting Maya had insisted she take as a thank you, contracts had been signed and plans were in motion. The showcase would open on the first Friday in May, 1 week after Maya's next major treatment milestone. I can't believe this is happening, Maya whispered as her mother closed the door behind Diana. Her mother hugged her gently, mindful of her frailty. I can. Your dad always said you'd be in galleries someday. The mention of her father, who had walked out when Maya was 12, unable to handle family life, brought a familiar pang. He wouldn't recognize me now. His loss, her mother said firmly. You are becoming exactly who you were always meant to be. That night, despite her exhaustion, Maya couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with possibilities she hadn't dared consider before. If her work sold at the showcase, perhaps she could afford the experimental treatment doctor. Patterson had mentioned the one insurance deemed investigational and refused to cover. Perhaps there was a future beyond just surviving month to month. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. On her good days, Maya painted with renewed purpose, completing 3 new pieces for the showcase. On her bad days, she directed her mother in selecting frames and finalizing which works would go to the gallery. News of her upcoming showcase spread, thanks in part to the gallery's promotion and the local arts blog that had championed her story. Her website crashed twice from traffic after the Westbrook Gallery announced the show. Emails poured in, from art lovers, from cancer survivors, from people simply moved by her journey. Through it all, there was no further word from Harrison Ford. Maya hadn't really expected any. He had already done more than most celebrities would dream of doing for a stranger. Still, she found herself painting a special piece, a scene from one of her favorite Indiana Jones movies, but rendered in her distinctive style, the artifact glowing with an ethereal light that symbolized hope in darkness. Maybe he'll see it someday, she told her mother as they wrapped it carefully, setting it aside from the pieces going to the gallery. Maybe he will, her mother agreed, not mentioning that she'd already contacted Harrison's publicist about the painting. The week before the showcase, Maya faced her hardest treatment yet, an aggressive chemotherapy protocol that left her unable to leave bed for 3 days. Her mother took emergency leave from work, sleeping on a cot beside Maya's bed, monitoring her temperature and forcing fluids when Maya couldn't bear to swallow. Maybe we should postpone the showcase, her mother suggested on the second night, as Maya shivered despite 3 blankets. No, Maya said weakly. I need this, something to look forward to. By the 4th day, the worst had passed, but Maya remained painfully weak. The thought of attending the showcase opening seemed increasingly impossible. The doctors were clear. Her immune system was too compromised for a crowded event. The gallery will understand, her mother assured her. Your health comes first. Maya nodded, fighting disappointment. She had dreamed of standing proudly beside her work, of seeing people's reactions firsthand, of feeling, just for one evening, like an artist rather than a patient. We'll figure something out, her mother promised. The solution came in an unexpected form. The day before the showcase, as Maya was finally able to sit up and eat solid food again, the doorbell rang. Her mother answered it and let out a small gasp of surprise. Maya, she called, voice trembling slightly. You have visitors. Maya looked up to see her mother ushering in not only Diana Lawson, but a tall, familiar figure, Harrison Ford himself, carrying a large gift bag. Mr. Ford wanted to see how you were doing, Diana explained, clearly as surprised by his presence as they were. Harrison nodded a greeting, his expression warm but composed. I heard you've had a rough week, he said simply. Thought you might need some encouragement before your big debut. Maya touched her headscarf self-consciously, acutely aware of her pallor and the IV port visible beneath her sleeve. I'm not sure I'll make it to the opening, she admitted. The doctors say it's too risky with my immune system compromised. Harrison set the gift bag on the coffee table. That's actually why I'm here. I have a proposition for you. From the bag, he pulled out what looked like a high-tech tablet. This is a remote presence device, state-of-the-art. I used something similar while recovering from an injury during a film shoot. Maya leaned forward, intrigued despite her fatigue. How does it work? You control it from here, your tablet or computer. It lets you navigate the gallery, see your artwork on display, even talk to attendees. Harrison demonstrated the controls. Diana and I thought you might be able to attend virtually. We'll have someone wheel it around for you, Diana added, so you can be present without risking your health. Maya felt tears welling up. You'd do that for me? Harrison shrugged, that familiar half-smile appearing. Artists should see their work appreciated. Seems like a simple solution. What he didn't say, but what Maya understood from his presence here, was that this wasn't just a casual favor. Harrison Ford had taken a personal interest in her journey, beyond the chance encounter in the rain. He saw something in her that reminded him of his own path, perhaps, or simply moved him as a fellow human being. There's something else, Harrison said, reaching back into the bag. He pulled out an envelope. The gallery sent me images of all the pieces in the showcase. I decided to make a pre-purchase. 1 year had passed since that rainy day when Harrison Ford had changed everything. Maya stood in front of her easel in the small studio space her mother had rented for her, a converted garage with skylights that filled the room with natural light. Her hair had grown back, a short cap of dark curls that framed her face. She still tired easily, but the experimental treatment had been working. Her latest scans showed the cancer was in retreat, shrinking month by month. Maya, her mother's voice called from the doorway. Someone's here to see you. Maya turned, brush still in hand, to see Diana Lawson entering the studio. The gallery owner looked as polished as ever, her black bob gleaming in the sunlight streaming through the skylights. Sorry to drop by unannounced, Diana said, her eyes already scanning the new paintings leaning against the walls. But I was in the neighborhood and wanted to see how the work is progressing. Maya smiled, setting down her brush. It's good to see you. In the months since her showcase, Diana had become more than just a gallerist. She'd become a mentor and friend. The success of Maya's first show had led to a formal representation agreement with Westbrook Gallery, and Diana now visited regularly to review new work and discuss Maya's evolving artistic vision. These are different, Diana observed, moving closer to a series of canvases propped against the far wall. Where Maya's earlier work had been characterized by delicate watercolors and muted tones, these new pieces were bold, vibrant acrylics, explosions of color depicting abstract representations of cellular structures and medical imagery. I'm calling it the Remission Series, Maya explained. It's about transformation at the cellular level, the battle between healthy cells and cancer cells, but also the beauty in that struggle. Diana nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. There's a confidence here that wasn't in your earlier work. Less restraint, more power. Fighting for your life changes your perspective, Maya replied simply. I don't hold back anymore. Not in my art. Not in my life. Diana circled the studio, taking in the dozen or so completed canvases. The collectors who bought your work last year have been asking when you'll have new pieces available, especially after that feature in Pacific Northwest Arts Monthly. The magazine article had been unexpected, a 4-page spread about Maya's journey from sidewalk art sales to gallery representation, including quotes from several notable collectors who had purchased her work. The piece had respectfully mentioned her ongoing cancer treatment without making it the focus, concentrating instead on her unique artistic vision. I've been thinking about that, Maya said, gesturing for Diana to sit in one of the comfortable chairs by the window. I want to do something different for the next show, something that gives back. Diana raised an eyebrow. What did you have in mind? A percentage of every sale goes to fund art therapy programs for cancer patients, Maya explained. I've been volunteering at Seattle Children's Hospital, teaching art to kids in the oncology ward. It's changed me, changed how I see everything. Diana nodded slowly. I think that's brilliant, especially given your story. Collectors will respond to that mission. It's not about the sales, Maya insisted. It's about using what happened to me to help others. Art saved me in ways the treatment couldn't. It gave me purpose when I felt most lost. I understand, Diana said softly, and the gallery will support whatever you want to do. She paused, glancing at her watch. Actually, that leads me to the real reason for my visit. I have a proposition for you. Maya leaned forward, curious. What kind of proposition? The Seattle Art Museum is planning a special exhibition on art and healing. They're featuring artists whose work deals with illness, recovery, and the therapeutic power of creativity. Diana smiled. They want to include your work, several pieces from both your first show and your new series. Maya stared at her, momentarily speechless. The Seattle Art Museum was one of the most prestigious institutions in the Pacific Northwest. Being featured there would elevate her career to an entirely new level. That's incredible, she finally managed. Are you serious? Completely. And there's more. Diana reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. This came to the gallery for you yesterday. Maya took the envelope, her heart skipping when she saw the return address, Lucasfilm Ltd. She opened it with trembling fingers and pulled out a handwritten note on personal stationery. Dear Maya, she read aloud, I've been following your progress through Diana and was pleased to learn about your improved health. The painting you gave me hangs in my home office, where it reminds me daily of the power of art to communicate across all boundaries. I'm writing because I'd like to commission a piece for a charity auction benefiting childhood cancer research. Your unique perspective would be invaluable to this cause. Please contact my assistant if you're interested. Warmly, Harrison Ford. Maya looked up at Diana, tears in her eyes. He remembered me. Of course he did, Diana replied gently. Your work isn't easy to forget, and neither is your spirit. Maya carefully folded the letter and returned it to the envelope. A year ago, I was selling paintings on the sidewalk to pay for treatments my insurance wouldn't cover. Now, the Seattle Art Museum wants my work, and Harrison Ford is commissioning a piece for charity. Life can change in an instant, Diana said. Sometimes for the worse, but sometimes, she gestured to the vibrant canvases surrounding them, for the better. That evening, after Diana left, Maya sat with her mother at their small kitchen table, sharing the news about the museum exhibition and Harrison Ford's commission. I always knew you were special, her mother said, squeezing Maya's hand, from the moment you first picked up a crayon. But it's nice that the rest of the world is finally seeing it too. I couldn't have done any of this without you, Maya replied. All those double shifts, all the times you held my hair back during treatment, all the nights you slept on that uncomfortable hospital chair so I wouldn't be alone. Her mother shook her head. That's what mothers do. We carry our children as long as they need carrying. Maya pulled out her sketchbook and began to draw, her pencil moving quickly across the paper. I'm going to accept Harrison's commission, but I want to do something special for the piece. What are you thinking? Her mother asked. Something that represents the journey, not just mine, but everyone who's faced cancer. Something about the moments that change everything. Maya looked up. Like a man in the rain, stopping to really see a sick girl's artwork. Her mother smiled. He'd like that. As Maya continued sketching, her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Patterson. Labs came back. Numbers still improving. Keep doing whatever you're doing. Maya set down her pencil and closed her eyes briefly, grateful beyond words. The experimental treatment had been expensive, but Harrison's purchase of her entire first series had made it possible. Now, a year later, she was still here, still painting, still dreaming of the future. When she opened her eyes, she found her mother watching her with a knowing look. Good news? Maya nodded. The best. Outside, rain began to fall, a gentle spring shower that pattered against the windows. Maya listened to the sound, no longer seeing it as a hardship, but as a reminder of how quickly life could change, how hope could appear from the most unexpected directions. She returned to her sketch, adding a figure standing in the rain, looking at a painting. Not Harrison Ford as the world knew him, the movie star, the legend, but as Maya had seen him that day, just a man taking the time to see something beautiful and real, even in the middle of a storm. The Seattle Art Museum exhibition opened on a crisp autumn evening. Maya stood in the center of the gallery, surrounded by her work, both the delicate watercolors from her treatment days and the bold, vibrant pieces from her remission series. Visitors moved around her, studying each painting, occasionally glancing at the young artist with recognition and respect. Maya wore a simple black dress that her mother had helped her pick out, paired with comfortable flats. She was still building her stamina and knew she'd be on her feet for hours. Her hair had grown into soft waves that framed her face, and there was color in her cheeks that had nothing to do with makeup. "Your work is extraordinary," said an older woman, approaching Maya with genuine emotion in her eyes. "My daughter went through treatment last year. Your waiting room piece captures exactly how it felt to sit beside her." Maya smiled, touched by the connection. "Thank you. I hope your daughter is doing well now." "She is," the woman replied. "She's here tonight, actually. She's an artist, too. Your story inspired her to start painting again." These moments had become increasingly common in Maya's life, encounters with others who had faced cancer, either personally or through loved ones, who found something in her art that spoke to their experience. It was humbling and deeply meaningful, a purpose Maya had never anticipated when she first set up her folding table in the rain. Across the room, Diana was speaking with several museum donors, occasionally gesturing toward Maya's most striking new piece, a large canvas titled Transformation that showed cellular structures in vibrant blues and purples, shifting and changing as healthy cells overtook cancerous ones. It was both scientifically accurate and emotionally powerful, a visual representation of Maya's own healing journey. "There you are," said a familiar voice behind her. Maya turned to find Dr. Patterson, her oncologist, looking somewhat out of place in the artsy crowd, but beaming with pride. "Dr. Patterson, I didn't know you were coming." "Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss this." The doctor gestured around the gallery. "When you first told me you were an artist, I had no idea. This is remarkable, Maya." "I brought something for you," Maya said, leading him to a small watercolor hanging in a quiet corner. It depicted a doctor's hands, Dr. Patterson's hands, holding a medical chart, a shaft of sunlight illuminating them from a nearby window. The title card read simply, "Healing Hands." Dr. Patterson stared at the painting, visibly moved. "I don't know what to say." "It's yours," Maya told him. "A thank you gift, for not giving up on me when things looked bleakest." Before he could respond, Maya's mother appeared, elegant in a borrowed dress and radiating pride. "Maya, the museum director wants to introduce you to some people. Important people," she added in a whisper. The next hour passed in a blur of introductions, conversations about her technique, and discussions of potential future exhibitions. By the time Maya found a moment to slip away to a quiet corner for a breath, she was overwhelmed with gratitude and disbelief at how far she had come. Her phone buzzed in her small evening bag. It was a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations on your exhibition. Wish I could be there in person." The commission piece arrived safely and exceeds all expectations. It will be the highlight of next month's auction. HF, Maya smiled, touching the screen gently. She had poured her heart into the piece for Harrison Ford's charity auction, a triptych showing 3 stages of her journey: the rain-soaked sidewalk where they'd met, the hospital room where she'd received the experimental treatment his purchase had funded, and finally, a sunlit studio where new work was being created. She had titled it Full Circle. "Is that who I think it was?" her mother asked, appearing at her side with 2 glasses of sparkling water. Maya nodded, showing her the text. "He got the painting." "Of course he did," her mother said matter-of-factly. "And it will raise a fortune for childhood cancer research." She handed Maya a glass. "I just overheard Diana talking. 3 of your pieces have sold already. Big numbers, Maya." Maya took a sip of water, letting the reality sink in. The sales meant security, paying off her remaining medical bills, perhaps even a down payment on a real studio space of her own. But more than that, they represented validation of her artistic vision, separate from her compelling personal story. "I never thought we'd be here," Maya admitted quietly. "When I was setting up that table in the rain, I was just trying to make enough for my next treatment." Her mother squeezed her hand. "And now you're helping others afford theirs." It was true. Maya had already established a small foundation with some of her earnings, providing art supplies to cancer treatment centers and funding art therapy programs. She'd even started a scholarship for young artists facing medical challenges. As the evening continued, Maya found herself drawn to a window overlooking the city lights. Seattle sprawled before her, the same city where she had once felt so small and powerless in the face of her diagnosis. Now it was the canvas for her emerging legacy, not just as an artist, but as a beacon for others navigating their own storms. "Quite a view," said Diana, joining her at the window, "but not as impressive as the view of your work on these walls." Maya smiled. "I keep thinking about all the coincidences that led here. If it hadn't rained that day, if Harrison Ford hadn't walked by, if he hadn't stopped." "I don't believe it was coincidence," Diana replied thoughtfully. "Some people radiate something that draws others to them, a light that's visible even in the darkest circumstances. That's what he saw in you, even before he saw your art." Maya considered this. Maybe. Or maybe he just knew what it was like to struggle before success, to need someone to believe in you. "Either way," Diana said, gesturing toward the crowded gallery, "this is all you, your talent, your vision, your resilience." A museum staff member approached, politely interrupting. "Ms. Reyes, we have a video call for you in the director's office, from Mr. Ford." Maya's heart leapt. "He's calling?" "Now?" "For the catalog interview," the staff member explained. "We mentioned we'd try to connect you during the opening. If you're available?" Maya glanced at Diana, who nodded encouragingly. "Of course she's available. I'll handle things out here." Following the staff member through the museum's back corridors, Maya took deep, calming breaths. A year and a half ago, she had been a desperately ill young woman selling art on the sidewalk. Now, she was about to speak with Harrison Ford about her exhibition at the Seattle Art Museum. The director's office was elegant and private. On a large screen, Harrison Ford waited, looking much as he had that rainy day, though now in what appeared to be his home office, with Maya's original gift painting visible on the wall behind him. "Ms. Reyes," he said with that familiar half-smile, "congratulations on your exhibition." Maya sat before the screen, suddenly shy, despite everything. "Thank you for calling, and thank you for the commission. I'm glad you liked it." "Liked it?" Harrison raised an eyebrow. "It's extraordinary. It tells a complete story without a single word." He paused. "Much like you did that day in the rain." Maya smiled at the memory. "I never got to properly thank you, not just for buying my art, but for seeing me, really seeing me, when I most needed it." "No thanks necessary," Harrison replied. "True talent deserves recognition. I simply had the good fortune to walk by at the right moment." They spoke for nearly 20 minutes, about art, about healing, about the upcoming charity auction. It wasn't a conversation between a famous actor and a young artist, but between two people who shared a profound appreciation for the power of creative expression. As they were about to end the call, Harrison said something that Maya would carry with her forever. "You know, Maya, what you're doing now, using your art to help others find their voice, to fund research, to bring beauty into medical spaces, that's the real masterpiece. The paintings are just the beginning." When Maya returned to the exhibition, her mother took one look at her face and knew something significant had happened. "Good call?" she asked. "Life-changing," Maya replied. "Again." 5 years had passed since Maya's first encounter with Harrison Ford. What had begun as a desperate attempt to fund her cancer treatments had transformed into a thriving career and a platform for helping others. Now 23, Maya stood in her own gallery space in downtown Seattle, a renovated industrial loft with soaring ceilings and natural light flooding through massive windows. Maya's vision had opened 6 months earlier, funded by her growing success and supported by a community that had rallied around her journey. It wasn't just a showcase for her own work, but a space dedicated to featuring artists facing medical challenges or using art as therapy. Today, she was preparing for a special event, a workshop for teenage cancer patients from Seattle Children's Hospital. The easels are all set up, called Jessie, Maya's assistant and a cancer survivor herself. The art supplies arrived, and I've arranged everything by station like you asked. Maya nodded, surveying the large open space where 15 easels formed a semicircle. Each station was equipped with high-quality paints, brushes, and canvases. Not the student-grade materials often provided for therapy programs, but professional tools that sent a clear message: your art matters. Perfect. Thanks, Jessie. Maya checked her watch. They'll be here in about 30 minutes. Is Dr. Wilkins coming? She just texted. She's on her way with the group. Jessie hesitated. And, there's something else you should know. We have another visitor coming. Diana called. Maya raised an eyebrow. Oh. Harrison Ford is in town filming something. He asked if he could stop by. Diana said he specifically wanted to see your work with the kids. Maya's heart skipped. Though they had maintained a connection through the years, Harrison had attended her major exhibitions when his schedule allowed and had commissioned several more pieces for various charitable causes. His visits were always meaningful. He had become, in many ways, a touchstone in her life, appearing at pivotal moments with exactly the right words or gesture. Did she say when? Sometime during the workshop. She wasn't sure exactly. Maya nodded, trying to remain calm. Well, we'll just proceed as planned. This day is about the kids, not about Harrison Ford. As she made final preparations, Maya couldn't help reflecting on how much had changed. Her cancer had been in remission for 4 years now. The experimental treatment Harrison's initial purchase had funded had worked better than anyone expected, though she still had regular checkups and lived with some lasting effects of her illness. Her mother had finally been able to quit her second job and now helped manage the foundation Maya had established, which provided art supplies and therapy programs to cancer treatment centers across the country. Most importantly, Maya's work had evolved far beyond her initial cancer art. Her latest series explored themes of interconnection and resilience in nature, massive canvases depicting root systems and mycelial networks, the hidden structures that sustained life even in harsh conditions. Critics had praised her technical growth and expanding vision, noting that while her personal health journey had launched her career, her artistic merit had sustained it. The elevator buzzer interrupted her thoughts. "They're here," Jessie called, moving to welcome the group. Moments later, the gallery filled with the energy of 12 teenage cancer patients, accompanied by Dr. Wilkins and 2 hospital staff members. Some of the teens were clearly in active treatment. Bald heads, port accesses visible beneath t-shirts. The telltale pallor Maya recognized all too well. Others showed signs of being further along in their journey, much like Maya herself. "Welcome to Maya's vision," she greeted them, suddenly feeling both very young and very old at once. "I'm Maya, and as Dr. Wilkins probably told you, I was where many of you are now, just a few years ago." A girl with a colorful headscarf raised her hand. "I have all your books, the one about the girl who paints her cancer as monsters and then defeats them. My mom reads it to my little brother to explain what's happening to me." Maya smiled. The children's books had been an unexpected branch of her career, a series about a young artist facing illness through creativity. "I'm glad they help. That means more to me than anything." "Is it true Harrison Ford discovered you?" asked a boy in a wheelchair, an IV pole beside him. "That's a bit of a simplification," Maya replied gently. "He certainly changed my path at a critical moment. But today isn't about my story. It's about starting yours." She guided them to the easels, explaining the concept for the day's workshop, creating what she called vision landscapes, paintings that depicted not where they were now, but where they hoped to be. Not just after treatment, but beyond, their dreams, their ambitions, the lives they were fighting for. "Art gave me a future to imagine when I couldn't see one," Maya explained. "It gave me something to work toward beyond just survival." As the teens began to paint, Maya moved among them, offering gentle guidance, technical tips, and most importantly, genuine interest in their emerging visions. Some painted literal scenes, beaches they wanted to visit, graduation ceremonies they were determined to attend. Others created abstract representations of emotions they wanted to feel again: freedom, strength, normalcy. A whir of the elevator announced another arrival. Maya looked up to see Diana stepping into the gallery, followed by Harrison Ford. At 65, He moved with the same confident ease she remembered, though his hair was now more silver than brown. He caught her eye and gave a small nod, indicating she should continue her work with the students. Maya appreciated his understanding. She finished helping a young girl mix the perfect shade of sunset orange before making her way over to greet him. "Mr. Ford," she said warmly, extending her hand. "Thank you for coming." He shook her hand, his eyes crinkling with his familiar smile. "I wouldn't have missed it. And I think after all these years, you can call me Harrison." Diana excused herself to talk with Dr. Wilkins, leaving Maya and Harrison standing together, observing the busy workshop. "This is remarkable," he said quietly. "What you've created here." Maya shook her head slightly. "I just wanted to give them what art gave me." "A voice when words fail," Harrison suggested. "And purpose when the future seems uncertain," Maya agreed. They walked slowly around the perimeter of the room, staying out of the young artist's way. Harrison stopped before Maya's newest large-scale work, a massive canvas depicting an ancient tree, its roots extending far beyond its canopy, intertwining with neighboring systems. "This is new," he observed. "Different from what you were doing last year." Maya nodded. "I've been researching how trees communicate and support each other through underground networks, how older trees nurture younger ones with nutrients and information." She paused. It seemed relevant to what we're doing here today. Harrison studied the painting thoughtfully. "Passing along what you've learned." "Exactly." One of the teens had noticed Harrison by now, and whispers were spreading around the room. Maya saw phones being discreetly pointed in their direction. "I should probably say hello," Harrison said with a resigned smile, "or I'll just be a distraction." Maya led him to the center of the workshop area. "Everyone, we have a special guest today. Some of you might recognize him." The room erupted in excited murmurs and wide eyes. Harrison raised a hand in greeting. "Don't let me interrupt your work. I just came to see what Ms. Reyes is building here, and I have to say, I'm impressed by what all of you are creating." A boy with a nasal cannula spoke up. "Did you really buy all her paintings in the rain?" Harrison chuckled. "Not exactly in the rain, but yes, I was fortunate enough to recognize Ms. Reyes's talent early on. And then he helped fund the treatment that saved my life," Maya added quietly, "which is why this gallery exists, why these workshops exist." Harrison looked slightly uncomfortable with the credit, just as he had years ago in her apartment. "The art sold itself. I was just the first customer." For the next hour, Harrison moved among the young artists, showing genuine interest in their work, sharing stories about his own creative process as an actor, and most importantly, treating them not as sick kids, but as serious artists. Maya watched with a full heart, seeing the teens straighten with pride as a Hollywood legend asked questions about their color choices and brushwork. As the workshop wound down and the teens prepared to return to the hospital, Dr. Wilkins pulled Maya aside. "This was transformative for them," she said. "Not just meeting Harrison Ford, but seeing you, seeing what's possible after cancer." Maya nodded, watching as Harrison helped a girl in a wheelchair clean her brushes. "That's all I wanted, to show them there can be an after, a beautiful after." 10 years had passed since that rainy day when Harrison Ford had changed Maya's life. Now 38, Maya had become one of the most respected artists in the Pacific Northwest, with works displayed in major museums across the country. Her foundation had expanded internationally, bringing art therapy programs to cancer treatment centers around the world. And most significantly, she had been cancer-free for 9 years, long enough that her oncologists now use the word cured rather than remission. Today, Maya stood in the grand atrium of the Smithsonian American Art Museum in Washington, D.C., hardly believing what she was witnessing. An entire exhibition dedicated to her work, Maya Reyes, Pathways of Healing, occupied the prestigious space, chronicling her artistic evolution from those early sidewalk watercolors to her most recent large-scale installations exploring connections between human resilience and natural systems. "I still can't believe this is happening," Maya whispered to her mother, who stood beside her, elegant in a navy blue dress that complemented her silver-streaked hair. "I can," her mother replied, squeezing her hand. "I always told you you'd end up in museums." They walked slowly through the exhibition, which was organized chronologically. The first gallery contained those early works, including several pieces Harrison Ford had purchased that rainy day on loan from his personal collection. Maya paused before waiting room number 3, a delicate watercolor depicting patients in a hospital waiting area, their faces blurred, but their postures conveying profound emotion. "I was so scared when I painted this," she recalled. "The doctors had just told me the standard treatments weren't working, and I needed something experimental that insurance wouldn't cover." Her mother nodded, remembering all too well. "You painted through the night after that appointment. I found you asleep at the kitchen table the next morning, surrounded by these." They moved into the next gallery, which showcased Maya's remission series, the bold, vibrant pieces she had created during her recovery. These were followed by her vision landscapes, and then her more recent work exploring natural systems and interconnection. The final gallery was dedicated to her latest series, Echoes and Reflections, which subtly incorporated elements from all her previous work into complex, layered compositions that critics had called a masterclass in artistic evolution. As they entered this last space, Maya spotted a familiar figure standing before her centerpiece, a massive triptych titled Rain Roots Renewal. Harrison Ford, now in his 80s but still standing tall, studied the work with the same intense focus she remembered from their first meeting. "Harrison," she called softly. He turned, his face lighting with a warm smile. "There she is, the woman of the hour." They embraced briefly, the formality of their early relationship long since evolved into genuine friendship. Over the years, Harrison had remained a constant presence in Maya's life, attending key exhibitions, continuing to commission works for various causes, occasionally meeting for coffee when they found themselves in the same city. He had become a trusted advisor and advocate, using his influence to open doors for her foundation's work. "What do you think?" Maya asked, gesturing to the exhibition around them. "I think it's about damn time the Smithsonian recognized what I saw 10 years ago in the rain," he replied with characteristic directness. "This is extraordinary, Maya, a complete artistic journey." Maya's mother excused herself to greet Diana Lawson, who had just arrived with several important collectors, leaving Maya and Harrison alone before the triptych. "You know," Harrison said quietly, "I've been thinking about that day a lot recently. Do you want to know why I stopped at your table?" Maya looked at him, curious. In all their years of friendship, they had never really discussed the specifics of that chance encounter. "I always assumed it was the forest painting. You said it reminded you of Olympic National Park." Harrison shook his head slightly. "It wasn't just the painting, it was you." Maya tilted her head questioningly. "I had been having a difficult morning," Harrison explained. "Nothing serious, just the usual frustrations of a film production, some rewrites I didn't agree with. I was walking to clear my head, feeling sorry for myself." He paused. "And then I saw you." Maya listened, transfixed. This young woman, clearly ill, setting up art in the rain. No self-pity, no desperation, just quiet determination. It stopped me in my tracks. Harrison gestured to the exhibition around them. "Before I even saw your work, I saw your courage. That's why I stopped." Maya felt tears welling in her eyes. "I had no idea." "You reminded me of something important that day. Perspective, real problems versus petty complaints. And then when I saw your art..." He shook his head in wonder. "Well, the rest you know." The exhibition director approached, apologetically interrupting to remind Maya that the press preview would be starting soon. Harrison nodded understandingly. "Go be brilliant. We'll talk more at dinner." As Maya moved toward the atrium where journalists and photographers were gathering, she glanced back to see Harrison still studying her triptych, his weathered hand reaching out to trace the brushstrokes with his eyes, not his fingers. The gesture brought her full circle, back to that rainy day when he had first looked at her work with such genuine appreciation. The press conference passed in a blur of questions about her artistic process, her foundation's work, and her journey from sidewalk sales to the Smithsonian. Maya answered thoughtfully, crediting her mother's unwavering support, the medical team that had saved her life, the arts community that had embraced her, and of course, the chance encounter that had changed everything. "Ms. Reyes," called a reporter from the Washington Post. Your foundation has brought art therapy programs to cancer centers in 47 countries. What drives this global mission? Maya considered the question carefully. When I was ill, art gave me something treatment alone couldn't. A reason to keep fighting. A way to process what was happening to me. A vision of a future beyond cancer. Every patient deserves that opportunity. And what about Harrison Ford's role in your career? Asked another journalist. He's here today. Would you say he discovered you? Maya smiled. Harrison likes to say he was just the first customer, but he was much more than that. He saw value in my work at a moment when I desperately needed someone to see it. That's something I try to pay forward every day, really seeing people when they feel invisible. After the press conference concluded, Maya found herself drawn back to the first gallery where it had all begun. A small group of young art students had gathered around her earliest works, sketchbooks in hand, studying her technique. Among them was a girl in a wheelchair, a colorful scarf wrapped around her head, clearly a cancer patient herself. Maya approached quietly, listening as their teacher explained the context of these early works. Reyes created these while undergoing cancer treatment. She was selling them on the street to pay for medical expenses when Harrison Ford happened to walk by and purchase her entire collection. The girl in the wheelchair raised her hand. So she was sick when she made these? Like, really sick? Yes, the teacher confirmed. According to her biography, this was during her most difficult period of treatment. The girl studied the paintings with renewed interest. They don't look sad, though. They look hopeful. That's exactly right, Maya said, stepping forward. The students turned in surprise, their eyes widening as they recognized her. I was looking for hope wherever I could find it. Sometimes I had to create it myself. The girl in the wheelchair stared at Maya with a mixture of awe and recognition, not just of her fame, but of their shared experience. I paint too, she said softly. In the hospital. They say it's good therapy, but it's more than that, Maya finished for her. It's a way of staying yourself when everything else is changing. The girl nodded vigorously. Exactly. No one gets that. Maya smiled. I get it. She knelt beside the wheelchair. What's your name? Zoe. Well, Zoe, would you and your classmates like a private tour from the artist's perspective? The teacher looked like she might faint from excitement, while the students erupted in enthusiastic agreement. Maya led them through the exhibition, sharing stories behind specific pieces, demonstrating techniques, and answering their earnest questions. But she paid special attention to Zoe, recognizing in the girl's eager eyes the same fire that had kept her going during her darkest days. As the tour concluded, Maya noticed Harrison watching from a discreet distance, a look of profound satisfaction on his face. She excused herself from the students and joined him. What? She asked, noticing his expression. Full circle, he said simply, nodding towards Zoe, who was now excitedly sketching in her notebook. You're doing for her what I tried to do for you, except you're doing it better. Maya shook her head. I learned from the best. Harrison laughed softly. No, Maya, you were already the best. I just happened to walk by in the rain. 20 years had passed since that life-changing encounter in the rain. Maya Reyes, now approaching 50, stood before an easel in her sunlit studio overlooking Puget Sound. Her hair had a few strands of silver now, and fine lines had formed around her eyes, evidence of a life fully lived, of survival against the odds, of countless smiles and tears. The painting taking shape on her canvas was unlike anything she had created before, a portrait of Harrison Ford. Not as the world knew him from his iconic film roles, but as Maya had known him, the thoughtful man who had stopped in the rain to really look at a sick girl's artwork. She was working from memory and photographs, capturing him as he had appeared that very first day, and also as he had been at the Smithsonian exhibition 10 years ago. It had been nearly 2 years since Harrison's passing at the age of 89. The world had mourned a legendary actor, but Maya mourned a friend, a mentor, a constant presence throughout her adult life. This portrait was both tribute and therapy, her way of processing the loss of someone who had been instrumental in her journey. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Maya turned to see her assistant, Kai, standing in the doorway. "Sorry to disturb you, but the film crew is here. They're setting up in the gallery downstairs." Maya nodded, setting down her brush. "Tell them I'll be down in 15 minutes. After Harrison's death, there had been an outpouring of tributes and retrospectives. Among them was a documentary about his lesser-known philanthropic work, including the story of his chance encounter with Maya. The filmmakers had approached her about participating, and after careful consideration, she had agreed. Some stories deserved to be preserved. Maya washed her hands, changed into a simple but elegant tunic, and made her way downstairs. Her home studio complex had expanded over the years to include a public gallery space and classrooms where she taught workshops for cancer patients and survivors. The walls were filled with artwork, not just Maya's own pieces, but works by hundreds of patients who had found healing through her foundation's programs. The documentary crew had set up in a corner of the gallery, surrounded by photographs chronicling Maya's journey, from that rainy day sidewalk sale to international recognition. At the center was a framed newspaper clipping with a now famous image: Maya and Harrison Ford at the opening of her first major exhibition, both smiling widely at the camera. "Ms. Reyes," the director greeted her warmly, "thank you for making time for us. We know this must be difficult." Maya smiled. Harrison would have hated all this attention on his good deeds. He always insisted he was just the first customer. "But you and I know it was more than that," the director replied. Maya nodded. "Much more." As the cameras began rolling, Maya shared the story she had told countless times, how a chance encounter in the rain had cascaded into a lifelong friendship and a career that had touched thousands of lives. But today, she shared details she had never revealed publicly before: the private conversations, the ongoing support, the genuine connection that had sustained them both through the years. Harrison never wanted credit, she explained to the interviewer. He genuinely believed he had simply recognized something that was already there. But what he didn't understand was how much his belief mattered at that specific moment, when I was closest to giving up. "You maintained a friendship for 20 years, the interviewer noted. "How did that relationship evolve from your initial encounter?" Maya smiled, remembering. "It changed gradually. In the early years, he was a mentor, opening doors, introducing me to people who could help advance my career and my foundation's work. But over time, as my success grew, we became true friends. We would meet for coffee when our paths crossed, exchange emails about books we'd read or films I'd seen." "Did he ever talk about why he maintained this connection?" the interviewer asked. Maya considered the question. "Once, at the Smithsonian exhibition, he told me that seeing me that day had given him perspective, reminded him of what real courage looked like. I think our friendship continued because we each saw something in the other that we valued. He saw determination in me. I saw genuine humanity in him." The interview continued, covering Maya's artistic evolution, her foundation's global impact, and the legacy she was building. But throughout, the conversation returned to Harrison, how his simple act of kindness had rippled outward, touching countless lives through Maya's work. "My foundation has now helped over 50,000 cancer patients access art therapy," Maya explained. "Every year, we award scholarships to young artists facing medical challenges. We've built studios in hospitals across 30 countries." She paused. None of that would exist if Harrison hadn't stopped that day. After the filming concluded, Maya invited the crew to browse the gallery while she made tea. As she waited for the kettle to boil, she found herself looking at a small watercolor hanging in her private kitchen, one of her earliest works, a simple forest scene that Harrison had purchased that first day. He had returned it to her on her 40th birthday with a note. "This belongs with the artist who created it. It has hung in my home for 15 years, reminding me daily of the power of small acts. Now, it should remind you of how far you've come. With admiration, Harrison." Maya touched the frame gently, remembering his kindness, his gruff wisdom, his consistent support through the years. The documentary would capture the facts of their connection, but it could never fully convey what Harrison had meant to her, not just as a catalyst for her career, but as a steadfast friend who had believed in her when she most needed belief. The kettle whistled, bringing her back to the present. As she prepared the tea, Zoe, no longer the girl in the wheelchair but now Maya's foundation director, entered the kitchen. "How did it go?" she asked, helping arrange cups on a tray. "It was good," Maya replied, a fitting tribute to him. "He would have hated it," Zoe said with a knowing smile. Maya laughed. "That's exactly what I told them." Together, they carried the tea to the gallery, where the film crew was admiring Maya's latest installation, a collaborative piece created with 20 cancer survivors, each contributing elements that represented their healing journeys. "This is extraordinary," the director commented. "The interwoven narratives, the different perspectives, all harmonizing." "That's the point," Maya explained. "Healing isn't a solitary journey. We're all connected, patient to doctor, artist to viewer, stranger to stranger. One person stops in the rain, and 20 years later, thousands of lives are different." That evening, after everyone had gone, Maya returned to her studio. The portrait of Harrison waited on the easel, nearly complete, but missing something essential. She studied it in the fading light, trying to identify what was lacking. Finally, she picked up her brush and added one small detail, a raindrop on the shoulder of his jacket. Just one glistening drop, catching the light. Because that was how it had begun. With rain, with chance, with one person taking the time to truly see another. As she made the final brushstroke, Maya whispered words she had said at Harrison's memorial service. "Some people change your life by simply stopping to look at what others pass by. Thank you for stopping." Outside her studio window, a gentle rain began to fall on Puget Sound, droplets catching the last golden light of sunset. Maya watched it for a moment, feeling the perfect symmetry of endings and beginnings, of gratitude and grief, of a life transformed by a moment that might never have happened. She titled the portrait simply, "The Man Who Stopped in the Rain." And with that, Maya Reyes, once a desperate young woman selling art on the sidewalk, now one of America's most celebrated artists, gently placed her brush in water and stepped back from the easel, knowing the story had come full circle at last.